is the Eliatribe part 1 of 2
December
of
7th,
3 maybe. And I have the second one having to do with Mary Olive or something like that. This is on October 30th, 2023. 20 years ago, I think it was, to the day. Pulled it out. It was either today or yesterday. I mean today or tomorrow. I think it was today that they pulled in during the daytime. It's Halloween, so this is Halloween Eve. But anyway, here's a section coming up. Eliatribe part 1. All rights reserved to Eli James. 2023. And go from here.
Document content. Text box. Horizontal line. Chapter 26. Apostate Sebastian, take out the personal/pronouns and make it a Bible tract. Good luck with that. The table said. New line. Horizontal line. Chapter 26. Apostate Sebastian, take out the personal/pronouns and make it a Bible tract. Good luck with that. The table said. The movie 70 by Ely James, copyright 2023. A little yeast in the dough makes the whole dough bad start, like bracing supports out of his extended hands at the end of firmly extending arms as he clamped down firmly atop of the shoulder portions of the rabbi's black robe and customary dress. Enveloping loosely from upper chest to ankle level as the sun wondrously frolic with the bedazzling microscopic strands as fuse enlivening same robe in a bedazzling display of sunlight and absorption splendor as though reflecting and emitting of the satin vesture alone. Please, Rabbi, your priceless translation services required again. Elijah relaxed the fierceness in his strong disposition when the man smilingly anticipated the prophet's words. Speaking to him in Hebrew, I do surmise that through this one contender we shall ignite a torch of revival for many who stand here today. Is there anything, Rabbi friend, who Messiah does love and know? Apart from the matter that is the imputed righteousness by merits of only the blood of the Lamb and the efficacious nature in Yeshua's sacrifice of untainted blood, uncheapened by any tradition that I should like to know of. In your estimation? For I in my spirit do know that this man does not typify the soul who is lost only because he is unable to war against truth unknown to him, but this one is stained by the greater infraction that is utilizing deliberately as with the craft of Satan the truth known only to blaspheme with a misappropriation of meaning. At least 100 gathered around us, and in their moistened eyes with stricken throats I perceive that these like wounded animals ensnared themselves are ones thirsting for living waters that save. If only they weren't coerced into subservience to the apostate system and wicked garden protected by only Satan. In a word. And what is this term of ecclesiastical imperialism as universal sovereign? The master and deity manifest in the flesh alone is wholly sovereign. Tell me more specifically what these do appropriate to the meaning of the sacrificial gift of Yeshua as occurred in these parts millennia ago. If I should give the atonement matter through a stream of symbols and affectations as conveyed through parable, through the eyes of this man, the Father Sebastian, dressed like the priest and his kind, am I able to do that only while sufficiently meting out the non-allegorical terms to appropriate the realities as written in God's word with God's truth, losing nothing, or must I conform the foot to fit the sandal? Whether through Moshe, this Paul, or some other person's diligent plying, speak freely, Rabbi, and shame the devil. These do make merry, jollying about while greeting one another in the marketplace district of the temple, with the promise to return to reassemble to address these ones gathering here prior to the return of the priest, the Father Michael Sebastian D'Angelo, with Elazar Elias Ben Yehuda by his side and accompanied by their men, to comprise a total of 11 persons. Elijah intently listened as captive audience to the sagacious man of sound repute, notoriously received as a learned scholar of Torah, Talmud, Mishnah, Kabbalah, and that to what he said he'd come to appreciate the most in his studies of Tanakh and Brit Chadashah. specifically of the Old and New Testament's indispensable parallels, around which he in commentary form composed his latest book that was in wide circulation through a prestigious publishing house. As unwilling as he was to divorce himself from his Jewishness, publicly excoriating persons demanding that he should, similarly was he incapable of professing for man a greater hope than that which is found in Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Messiah. You are correct. Elijah, anointed of the Lord. These calling themselves by the term Catholic, as does Padre Pietro di Rome Dianus, and the one calling himself the Father Michael Sebastian D'Angelo. Duplicitously so, the former for a reason I can later explain. And in your vision given by God with the ornate skyward reaching temples, as you speak about the dream of bell towers with the ornate craftsmanship and constructed domes glistening with gold and silver in those basilicas. These are mostly theirs. The religion referred to by them as universal because by law was she made the official religion of state in Empire Rome centuries ago. And, as you know, that has been since revived as self-proclaimed infallible head today. The religion does consider itself as infallible as do her leaders expressly, with her doctrine overseen by such men as Pietro Dianus and centuries of pontiffs as lords of their churches. The portion once of here since broken away from her. And how that the world when hearing the word Christian does seem to by default look at these. But those breaking away are to be lauded because these go to the Word of God to construct their belief systems and teach principles according to biblical Christianity that does closely resemble the talk of believers from Be'erit Chadashah's Acts book in ones two who walked with their Messiah. The Messiah. This latter group clearly seen as true sect of Judaism instead of Catholicism, who might not say the same thing with the former, declared as Protestants, who are not only comfortable with but pledged to knowing the early Jewish scriptures as do they the revelations touched by Messiah that oft do elucidate the truths in Torah and Tanakh. So woefully is it that world can look to traditions of Sebastian's group and call such true Christianity. As has the saying, if toward the Jews in that day, why scarcely to say toward the Gentiles too? A clue that these understand the 70th week of Daniel's later consummation end. Throughout history the envy evinced the other way around. The times have changed and the scriptures once turned away from have come to the forefront and speak toward inclusion and acceptance. Elijah. Having said, how eloquent, and so you know the full matter. Yes, switched on his feed. As mechanically as does a scanner when digitally grazing the words in photostat form, surveyed with an intense glare aimed at the crowd. His eyes from side to side panning while he murmurs silently to himself while receiving most of the words spoken to him as reaffirming words atop of what he surmised already. The manner by which the conveyance from the rabbi had met his ears, suggesting that he'd all along been tuning in to assess from the manner in things left unsaid in some gleaning of the sense of the rabbi's unspoken perceptions. As though seeking to construct a template of both the man's impressions, deduced and redacted, exposition alongside any espoused personal opinions, and from what radiate from glimmering retinas centering the innermost parts of his eye orbs, the Tishbite hoped to from this unslothful learned one with a heart and mind to through convocation bless the heart of God learn a substantial mode of transference most useful to him here. Elijah. As one accustomed to passing edicts of judgment against instead of catering for favorable treatment from kings and rulers, he instinctively knew, as though hardwired predispositioned, only the healthy dose of bias emanating not from any one specific man but from his knowledge of and very real experiences with mankind. Set this scene up equal, I have one of them referring to scriptures here or non sequitur. Oh, he would to the Lord's words lead us. Sebastian D'Angelo. Saying that you do raise the golden chalice and present the wafer in memory of the Lord. In memory only, in so much that in fashion of doing so you might in memory observe his crucifixion by wearing the image of the relic crucified on a chain in the icon dangling in front of your chest. Moshe and I appear with him as he is, bodily and ascended and as pre-existing from eternity, and how fitting it is that you do only while spousing openly that which is in the golden chalice cup and on the golden plates which is in reality, according to your teaching, the very real non-symbolic essence of the Lord's body. This that you will to remember him who would be virtuous if only you put off first a blasphemous notion while saying that you remember him only where he is bodily present in the sacrament. As with the icon against your chest you attest of only knowing of him at the expense of at best forgetting why he had presented his body. According to both your custom and your own words your infallible church does render itself apostate as you alone require that the Lord be crucified afresh every week and week upon week. Therefore to conclude by asking you to straightway tell me, priest, when is the Lord's atonement from when he actually did hang on the cross sufficient? Elijah's eyes flashed indignant as he excoriated the man whose pompous expression was his dominant image and forefront aspect and feature. When is it completed at all? It was Eliezer who sniped. Do you have a hearing problem? False charlatan impersonating me. The good Father D'Angelo said in memory do our brethren and the Catholic Church observe his death and resurrection, the man perfecting animus with his lathered up nasty snarl of a venomous sword. I do not address you. You heretic falsely representing the faith of the Jewish fathers while claiming to be me instead. The Lord's prophet sent for the hour. And you who would enable Naboth to hand over the garden that he'd so ardently toiled over to the wicked Ahab and Jezebel instead of keeping the garden that was heirloom and gift from the fathers given. I shall finish with you soon. Elijah angrily gestured and mouthed something more before returning attention to the priest. Your act of consecrated idolatrous devotion should be made the memory and shall be soon enough instead of the supper of the Lord being remembered without true devotion. That is what it is. Correct. Please educate me on the semantics of this thing. Quote gregarious and hearty laughter from deep inside of the belly generated when persons mindlessly began tapping each other, frothing up a jolly and against their chests touching with wildly enlarging eyes. Is this what you espouse or represent? My friend. Yes. I've made no secret of it as you've heard me say yourself. This man evidencing a betraying of fearful trepidation as Elijah took one large step forwarding then diverting his glance while casually reverse pattern stepping away from him. Stressing the words my friend to Eliezer or Jerome Dianus. Earlier you say to me you memorialize the Lord's death and resurrection and hither and now do you affirm in the hearing of these gathered here that you memorialize the final supper itself? Which one is it? For this is like attending a birthday celebration and saying that you celebrate the event instead of the life. There is a difference. The issue before us relates to the atonement and its efficaciousness. Elijah turned toward his distant side, pointing to fellow rabbis wearing yarmulke and the large fur-rimmed wool caps on their heads and said, my Jewish brethren, as the Lord in the sacred writings contained in scrolls and then in your books says to you, the blood of bulls and goats prefer I not as these cannot for you procure salvation. Before this man standing here are you just because you never said that it could as sure as you know that nothing on altars and temples besides can impute salvation. So you do scarcely allegories the truths or misappropriate the terms as traditional symbols and far less as uninstructed liturgical creed. The Jewish people would have survived as a thriving people by no means if you had divested all or anything for salvation through altar's sacrifice. Moshe had lifted up the snake on the stick in the wilderness as a type of curse and his arm was lowered again. Elijah pointed toward the golden image of the Lord suspended from the chain where it outside of his blouse rest against the priest's chest. These men representing today a church professing to be the key into heaven instead of rightfully teaching that Yeshua is in so much that he gave his life one time for the sacrifice of sins as atonement that man could in no wise procure for himself. Finishing at one time and at once everything that was required and in a sacrifice that ever quickens but revives not. Scriptures declaring as in one man Adam all have died and that in one man are all made alive in Yeshua as the second Adam. Thus all men appointed to the election are redeemed and made alive. We do not memorialize a healing or who or what was unto it by of symbols bringing forth the reality and images and shapes speaking contrarily to the truth within the reality. Do you ever demand alongside the wind-blown butterfly the discardable cocoon? In one does it glorify the wind whereas the other is swept away. The bless of appeal is in the winged flight of the butterfly and scarcely on the cocoon that, albeit a testimony, it lives not.